Hello, my name is Jeff Brown, and welcome to another episode of Music on the Rocks. Music on the Rocks, you may know, is a show that I started in March of 2020 when the entertainment industry and many other industries had a real rough weekend, and then everything kind of got weird and forced us to become very creative very quickly. I know personally I lost a number of shows and a number of previous bookings just like that, and I will never get those shows back, and I know that I am not alone. There are musicians and folks in the entertainment industry and a bunch of other industries that are still trying to figure out how to make the last year and a half work. And I have been fortunate enough to where I decided to stake myself out in my little corner of my home and make my way through my music collection and my whiskey collection, one song and one drink at a time, as I have been doing weekly on Wednesdays since March of 2020, when this all began and everything got a little weird. But I gotta tell you, coming up real soon, I am going to go on a wonderful trip because times have changed a little bit and things have started to open up, and as long as we're safe and we're careful, which I absolutely plan on being, I am going to be able to go for a couple days to Kentucky to hang out on the Bourbon Trail, visit a couple distilleries, including an incredibly curated trip to Buffalo Trace Distillery over in Frankfurt, courtesy of a dear friend of mine who I've mentioned once or twice on this show before. But I'm very much looking forward to taking Music on the Rocks on the road. But until then, this week you get me in my corner of my home with the original redhead, Maker's Mark. Now I gotta tell you, I've made my way through a number of these larger bottles before. I am a Maker's Mark ambassador to the point where I was living in Chicago, and one year it got really cold and they sent up a little sweater for my bottle, and I wish I had that sweater around. I'm sure it's in a box somewhere. They said, just in case your bottle gets a little cold. So I put it on my bottle and it was super adorable. And then a couple years later it got even colder and they sent a little scarf to go with it too. So my Maker's Mark bottles have had little sweaters and scarves, because that's kind of how Maker's Mark do. But this was the first whiskey that I remember trying. It's completely possible that, when I was a kid, I went up to my uncles or my dad and, they had a glass of J&B or Canadian Club or something, and I said, can I have some of that? And they thought, whatever you want. And I remember it probably being terrible. But Maker's Mark was the first one that I remember enjoying. So we're going to go back to the beginning with the Maker's Mark. And I will be performing a song called Follow Where You Lead. Well, if I lose myself in you, you lose yourself in me too. Maybe that's the way that we get something new. And if I save those tears I cry, would you still push them aside until the waters and the lands at last collide? Whoa, 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 whoa. So indeed, you may have figured out by now that this has a whoa chorus. master of those wool choruses is my friend Matthew Morgan. We'll see what he thinks about this one. Well, I have given all I can. Does that make me less of a man? And I can only lose so much until I'm right where I began. Whoa, 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 But have we lost our mind to what we need? I'll hold my breath and follow where you lead, where you lead. Whoa, 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 If I lose myself in you, would you lose yourself in me too? And when we reach the end and find that we have nothing more to lose. That right there is a song called Follow Where You Lead. Wrote that a minute ago for one of those February Album Writing Month challenges with a woe chorus reminiscent of Mr. Matthew Morgan. Now that the music has completed, we make our way to the whiskey. I have here the Maker's Mark. Maker's Mark is in Bardstown, is it? It is near the beginning of the Bourbon Trail. My wife and I have been there once. I've been there another time before then, but I've been a Maker's Mark ambassador for quite some time, and this was my gateway into all of this. This was the first whiskey I had, and I thought, this is nice. And then, you know, you have more, and you have these different types, and everything expands. But this was the gateway, if you will. But my friends, be well, be safe, and I will see you on the road. Cheers, my friends. You know, it's funny. So Maker's Mark, I believe they have, you know, single barrels, you know, coming out of their eyes, and what they'll do is they'll make sure that each of those barrels meets certain criteria, and then they'll blend them all together into the Maker's Mark bourbon. So where a lot of the individual characteristics of the barrels are not necessarily erased, but melded into a cohesive unit that will always be what you expect. And that's where I'm going with this, is that Maker's Mark strikes me as a little bit of everything and not too much of anything. And some may call that boring. Some may call it balanced. To me, this is just, it hits all the notes where it needs to be. And this is a very good introduction. Like if you're not sure if you're gonna like bourbon, this is probably where to start, because this is sort of the benchmark. Like it's got a little bit of fruit, it's got a little bit of vanilla, it's got a little bit of caramel, it's got a little bit of wood, it's got a little bit of that spice, because I'm sure there's some rye in there. You know, it's bourbon, so it's got to be 51% corn, but there's probably 20 or so percent rye in there. So the rye is coming out, but nothing is overpowering anything else, and it's just very pleasant all the way through. But my friends, I am looking forward to my little trip, and I will see you on the road starting next week. Be well, my friends.